there.
Piece of leaf lettuce.
Piece of leaf lettuce. Piece of leaf lettuce on the bottom of the bun ensures that that burger still be juicy, but you're not like having the bottom half of your burger dripping through your fingers. Not the the bottom half of the bun dripping through your fingers.
I get it. So okay, so here's one issue: the bottom bun is falling apart because it's soaked. The top bun is breaking apart because it's not fresh.
Yeah. So often, you know what I do, especially if I'm getting takeout, so it's getting home. No joke. Like, I'll actually flip the burger over halfway through the drive. No joke. Like last night I'm driving home, I put my hand into the bag and I just, because
the burger.
Well, I did it to all of them that I could reach. I just flipped it over. So you're reversing polarity. Liquid flows down. Top of the bun gets seasoned in the exact same way the bottom of the bun gets seasoned. This is a thing. Millions of people do this around the world. How did you not know? How did you not know? This is proper burger management.
So my brother-in-law and I, when we eat our burgers, like when we get together with the family and we build our burgers, it's always epic, right? Okay. Like the burgers are epic. And we will start with the burger properly aligned, if you want to call it that way. And then as we're taking bites here and there, we will put it down upside down to maintain integrity.
So
this.
I
know.
Practice.
I laugh because I understand.
Now the world does too. That's the thing. Now the world does too. The proper way to set up the burger. I'll even say often I eat the burger upside down.
Some people do.
I'm part of that. I'm part of that 3%.
Fair enough. I have to tell you. Okay, so you're saying you don't. The shredded lettuce isn't going to do anything for the juices on the bottom bun.
It's just a strainer, and
I don't think I could ever eat a Big Mac though without the shredded lettuce. They would be totally different with pieces.
Some places you don't have choice. Some places you don't have choice. But here's the other thing too. Like McDonald's is like astronaut food. They have the science down pat. They're not putting extra liquid on there. I don't think I've ever had a moment with a McDonald's sandwich that something was leaking through the actual bread of it. Like that doesn't happen. Sometimes stuff's like falling out the side. It's kind of squeezing out all over the place. But for the most part, it's never been that the bun has gotten like gross. So they got the science down pat. It's all ones and zeros, computer programmed in the back, right? No, it is. I mean, they are the epitome of the assembly line burger. They got the science down. You could still have staleness, right? That can happen anywhere, but you don't have the components arguing with each other. Like they know the right amount of bun, right amount of, sauce, whatever the Big Mac sauce on there. But when you look proportionately, now you got me thinking about the science of this. If you look proportionately at a burger bun, my question to you is, why is the top so much thicker than the bottom? If bun designers were actually being mindful, they wouldn't be sort of too as hyped up on the aesthetics of the big puffy top instead. And especially now, like I think any burger joint worth their buns right now is using a bun that takes that into account, or they're constructing in such a way that more of the sloppy stuff is kind of above the meat, right? So it kind of comes down through the meat. There is taste science, as in your palate handles flavors in sort of a specific order. This is a two thing, like the way that it hits your tongue and the way that it sort of makes your mouth water. A good burger joint knows how to manipulate you that way. And they're going to construct it in a way that if they didn't do it that way, it wouldn't taste as good. Like you can have two restaurant joints that just use the exact same ingredients. One that puts like all of the ingredients on the bottom of the bun and then the meat, and then you bite it because of course everyone always, for the most, well, the 97% of the burger eaters don't ever rotate their burger. Come on, folks. You got to get on this. Get with the 3%. So you bite through the top. So you have a company that uses some thought in how they want you to taste the product versus the company is just like, yeah, they're just ingredients. I bet you company that's paying attention to how they're constructing it, you know, they're repping the burger.
So when you mention McDonald's as the ones and zeros of burgers, it made me think that sometimes all I want is a binary burger.
Binary burger. One, it's either on or off.
Right. And it's, you know, I give them credit. I know some people really dislike their food, but there's something about a Big Mac. And I'm trying to separate the feelings I have of being a kid and going to McDonald's. I'm trying to separate that out and just thinking about the Big Mac. And there's something about that burger that is satisfying to me. And I think it is what you say it is, that it's the science. That is a binary burger. That is a science experiment burger gone right.
Either works or doesn't.
And for me, it always works. Always.
And it always works the same way. Like I would never be able to say if I enjoy Big Mac too. I don't know if I'm a Big Mac, if that's the one I go for. Maybe it is. But I don't think I ever have. There's no nuanced assessment of a Big Mac. Like I don't think to myself when I've had one, let's say if I were to have 3 in a month, I would not be able to say to you, oh, you know what? This is good, but the Big Mac that I had 2 weeks ago was so much better. And to be speaking about the nuance of the flavor, right? I would just be speaking to the construction of it. I'd probably be thinking if I thought one that was better 2 weeks ago, probably all I'm identifying is that when I opened up the box, it was just a mess. Like lettuce was hanging out one side. The bun is sort of like a jaunty hat on the top of it. Sauce is all in the bottom of the thing. It was just poorly constructed. They didn't follow the ones and zeros. But I wouldn't have been able to I've never ever said with a McDonald's, the flavor, like the actual experience in the flavor was better or worse anywhere. So then we get back to the customized burger joints, like what we were kind of talking about before we went live. Just the Five Guys is franchisey, but it's still kind of you see everyone kind of grabbing the ingredients. It's a human, like their ketchup squirter. There's a human applying pressure, like a trigger, and it goes bloop, like that one shot. And all you got to make sure, as long as you're bloop doing the one shot, that it hits the right coordinates on the burger patty. I watched someone last night putting one together, and no joke, dude, no joke. He grabbed the squirt bottle, stopped for a second, and then no. Like actually looked to see where the sauce was hitting the meat, the ketchup, as opposed to the big trigger gun that's like it's hanging from a tentacle from the roof, and they just pull it down like, and then it sort of zips back up into the roof again, right? So I like rolling the dice like that on burger joints where they're making the stuff. I feel like I don't think I would do that with a lot of different styles of restaurants, but I think with burger joints, I'm prepared to roll the dice on a restaurant that's not doing ones and zeros. I'm willing to give them more of a chance, I think.
I agree. I'm willing to give them a chance, but then when you get a zero or a bad experience, you're like, well, I'm not paying that kind of money to support a burger that didn't taste good, which is rare for me to say. Like, it's not, I don't walk around not enjoying my burgers. But
well, that's my thing with a couple of the ones that you and I have talked about. That's been my experience. I'm just like, I'm not gonna, if considering I'm not paying McDonald's prices, I'm not paying for the ones and zeros. I'm paying for something a little bit more open source code, something that's a little bit more freestyle. Then I get my expectations go up. They do. And, Mine do too. So that's my burger thoughts. And the funny thing is, we keep talking about it, and I keep craving it. So
I'm dying, man. So this morning, I heard a message that you had sent me yesterday, and you were talking about burgers, and I was literally drooling the whole time I was out for my walk. So
you're
not only
triggered.
So I wake up and I have allergies. So not only is my nose running the whole time, so my nose is running and my mouth is running, and I'm like, am I going to have any fluid in me to get me home? type of thing.
Dehydrating out your mouth. That's I can't even believe that's a thing.
It's
You don't
not. I just made it up. There's
no,
no science.
but for those of us that are sort of down with the burger, like if like my mouth's watering so much, if I was just sort of leaning over, I would dehydrate.
So that's what you had me going this morning, dehydrating to the burger stuff. So
Oral dehydration.
oh,
It's so wrong. It's so wrong.
okay, so I'm going to shift gears here for a second, but I definitely am getting something to eat tonight. I don't know. There's a couple of places in town that are relatively new that I'd like to try. So we'll see what happens. The burger's always at the top of my mind, though. It's one of those things. If somebody, I think, when people do those things where they ask you what's something that if you could only eat one thing every day, what would it be? And for me, it's the burger, and there's a reason why. It's because they're so you can do almost anything with a burger. Like you can add almost any ingredient. So there's always you can play on stuff, right? If I just went by the title of burger, that could include chicken, that could include beef, that could include fish, right? Because my definition of a burger are those two buns with a bunch of stuff in between.
Not for me.
Okay, that's fair. Then that's why you wouldn't pick it, but I would pick it.
No. It's the burger.
Even ice cream sandwich burger.
No, see, that's right. I just wouldn't call it. For me, burger is the ground meat. It's got to be the ground cow. So
I can't do it. The ground cow.
Ground cow. Yeah. Okay. Anything else is a sandwich.
Oh, interesting. Anything else is a sandwich. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
Why?
It has the two buns and some sort of filler.
So
I kind of go categorically. So it's sort of like sandwich is anything. So we want to do this?
I almost spit out my tea, man.
Do we want to have this conversation right now?
I'm not living in Clank Studios. I got pictures on the wall and
it's stuff. Looking pretty good though, eh? Like
it looks fantastic, but if you spit your juice out, it's okay. If I do that here, my wife's gonna kill me.
It's true. This is like my little corner of the cave. So it's funny because I like to often I'll do attendance check-ins in class for the students using Google Meet. So I put down that kind of stuff. Like this past week, maybe it's just the week before, I forget some of the ridiculous poll questions that I drop into the chat, but like one of them is, what is the superior dessert? And then I'll drop in, ice cream or whatever. What's the superior fast food, McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's? But one of the ones that I did put in there is, and it lit the kids up. Is cereal soup was one. And they had a hard time with that. They had a hard time committing to an answer. And the other one was, is a hot dog a sandwich? And it's just, I love to watch the kids because they'll vote. And then I always put the vote. It's the funny thing with question design is that all you really need to do for question design is I find sometimes simpler the better, especially so you maintain the audience's attention span, but capturing attention, you have to figure out what are some like surprising, strange questions. And the surprising, strange questions, I think that's probably the epitome of the hook when we talk about lesson planning. Like you're looking for a hook, a good question to get the kids to surprise them as they walk in, or they're walking in an activity where it seems accessible to them because they know how to sort of join in the fun and all that kind of stuff. So for me, crafting questions, it has to be one part surprise, one part simplicity, and one part ridiculousness. Like, Clef, why are you even asking this question? Like, often the students will say to me, why are you doing this to us? Like, they're aware that I'm pulling their chains when I ask them a question, but they can't stop themselves from answering. So me sort of going into this is that often I've done for such ridiculous, surprisingly simple questions, it forces me to do some deep thinking. Because I get their reaction, which just adds to my deep thinking, if that makes sense. So in the asking, is a hot dog a sandwich? My class was split. They were split, but they were arguing the same thing. They wanted to create another category. They were saying no because it's tube meat instead of patty meat. They wanted to argue that the bread, they get it, it's two pieces of bread-like things, but they have to be flat in order to be a sandwich. And I just kind of sit back and I watch like the whole chat go nuts, and you can't even track it sometimes because it goes so fast. It's like that's why I walked away from Twitter chats. I'm like, I just don't have the tolerance to sort of backtrack back and forth. I'll wait until somebody unrolls it or uses some other app to put it in a static form, and then I can kind of read it, because you just know you're missing interesting parts of the convo. So is a hot dog a sandwich? Yes. Here's my criteria. Okay. So for me, a sandwich must have a filling and an envelope. That is it. So you say, yo, Clough, what about a lettuce wrap? Yes. Yo, Clough, what about a pita? Yes. But then you can do the subcategories. So for me, a burger is a sandwich, but I tend to sort of say, for me, a burger has to be ground cow. I tighten it up. I said it to one person one time, my buddy Doug, who haven't talked to the dude in years, but he wasn't the outgoing chef at the restaurant that I ended up sort of training to become a chef. He went off and did his own catering thing. And then he and I met up again at teacher's college. It was totally random. We both walked in the first day. I'm like, Doug, he's like, Clough, how's it going? I'm like, man, and it had been like 5-6 years since I had seen the dude. But he's a hunter. So he always had moose meat. He had a couple other meats. And there was a couple times where he was making burgers. I'd tried the burgers, and I would say, this is a great sandwich. And he sort of just like, sort of look at me. He never really addressed it, but that was when I first test drove it. And that was about 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago. No, longer than that, because I've been teaching for 16. So this was probably closer to 20 years ago. Damn.
So for you, a burger, the definition of a burger is ground beef.
No, one of the indicators, I'll say.
Oh.
Not the definition. Let's use the technical language here. So an indicator that the sandwich that you are eating is a burger, for me, is that it has ground meat inside.
Oh, ground meat. So it can be pork?
No.
Oh.
It is
said ground meat.
Well, I was just clarifying what you said. So, but it's ground cow for me.
So if it's a pork burger, it's not a burger. It's for you, it's a pork sandwich.
It's a sandwich.
Even if it looks like a burger, it's a sandwich.
Yeah, I won't give it credit. It's not a burger.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can't.
So how much pushback do you get on this? Because this is unlike you. You're very unflexible here. And I feel like people are going to push back hard.
Yeah, I let them. Because usually I think part of the pushback is that they kind of go, Clough, there you go again, giving time and space to thinking about something that 97% of the rest of the world just doesn't give a damn about. Nice talking to you though, Clough. Enjoy your sandwich. And I'm okay with that.
You have to be.
You have to be. Yeah. Well, no, okay, I think I just have accepted that there's times where I've stopped trying to project that my thinking is the rest of the world's thinking. I can't do that anymore. I'm just embracing the random, ridiculous things that I sort of will explore and consider. What's interesting is that, at least interesting to me anyways, is that the process of allowing that type of thinking to happen, I think serves me very well in understanding other people's points of view. The fact that I'm willing to kind of entertain some of the strangeness in my own thinking and spend time sort of unpacking it. And even like this, being able to talk to you about it. And you, like you're saying, yeah, Clough, you seem to be you've convinced yourself very well. Well, I mean, I'm always open to the conversation, but I think it's always, for me, I think, it's okay for people to have their opinions. So I would, I'm open to the fact that someone could convince me otherwise too. Because this is only just, it's a way for me to organize my own world. I'm not looking to organize anybody else's world. However, I will say, if you've never flipped, if you're a person that complains about the soggy bottom on your bun, I would just say 180, bro. Flip it. You'll know, and flip it. And if you ain't eating it right away, flip it halfway home on the drive. You won't have a soggy bottom anymore. I guess theoretically you could have a soggy top and bottom, but it's going to be equal soggy top and bottom. Equisoggy. That's like in the same realm of words today as oral dehydration.
Drooling out of the nose and the mouth. It's awesome. People must look at me and be like, "What is wrong with this guy?"
Dude's half bulldog.
And what do you know? What the best is the best.
Besides this whole conversation,
yes, my coat. I get home, take the coat off because I wear the same coat when I walk, and it's like there's stuff all over it. It's all good. I wash it once a week, and then when it's not washed, it's those are my medals of honor that I got out, and I walked around and I dripped everything out. It's awesome because people are out there like, that guy's got to have COVID. It's like, I don't have COVID. I have allergies, and in an hour they'll be gone. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like it just happens. They just happen to want to come right out the minute I wake up. But yeah, listening to you talk about the burger, I was like, oh my God, why?
Some of the funniest, I have my friend Carla. This whole convo is making me remember some of the people I got to get in contact with. My friend Carla is just a spitfire with her sense of humor, quick, like you sort of like sometimes a bit of a viper, like you think you got her with a good joke and you sort of turn around, she's like sick, and like just get you with a good one, like the sort of like the bite right in the neck. You're like, oh my God. But she's just super funny. And one of the things that I would always play with her around is that she's kind of sloppy, like she drops food on herself. Mm-hmm. And I can remember, us going out over a couple of different visits, her having, and she doesn't notice it sometimes. So there was a whole stretch of a couple months where she went to, it's a well-known burrito joint, Chipotle's. It's close to, the school that I was at previously. And like, she'd come back every day with something. She'd get like a burrito bowl. And, I'm like, Carla, yo, what's that green stuff on your scarf? She's like, oh, guacamole. And then as she would still come out for food and meet up with us when she was kind of beginning her pat leave, being away. And then it only kind of just spiraled downward from there. Like we'd meet up for coffee and, she's got different stains on her. But she totally rocked it like you're saying, badges of honor. That's what it was. They were badges of honor. And the best pushback sometimes that you can do for individuals that are kind of messing with you and kind of playing jokes with you is to laugh at the exact same thing. Like someone calls, I would say, dude, like I get it. It's tough to kind of get cleaned up to get out to see your friends. I'm like, but that's a lot of relish on your shirt. Like that's still wet. When did that happen? It could be like early that morning or the day before, but it's just kind of like, you just embrace it. So this whole, like you're talking about the sloppy jacket, like this is what you got me thinking. The sloppy jacket is a badge of honor. Good stuff. I love it.
And I'm so sad that I can go to a Five Guys burger joint, but I'd have to drive to Guelph.
That's the closest, eh?
That's the closest one to me, yeah.
And Five Guys is good. It is good.
There's something about it. I hate to interrupt, but
do it.
There's something.
I gotta be honest. It doesn't bother me.
Be honest with me. Just let me have a second. I need a second of your time.
Yeah, you can have a little bit of my time. I'm not gonna lie to you. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. Thank you for letting me be honest with you for this moment.
It's good. I appreciate you. Five Guys.
So back in the day, I don't know how many years ago, when we went to Ottawa to visit my family, get off the highway and we're hungry. So on the way to my mom's house, we stop at Five Guys. And I didn't think anything of it then. We got the food, we sat down, we ate it, and we went to my mom's house. And it was fine. It wasn't anything special. Didn't feel like special. And then last year on my son's hockey team, the coaches were big fans of Five Guys. So when we'd go to Hamilton or London, we'd play the game, and then the kids would come out of the dressing rooms like, the coaches are going to Five Guys. Are we going to Five Guys too? Who am I to say no to going to get a burger, right? So
Exactly.
we head over to Five Guys, and all of a sudden, I had this newfound appreciation. The burgers always came out relatively like binary, relatively the same, and just delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was saying to you in my response to your talk about Five Guys this morning, that I'm missing it. But it's okay. I'll survive. I'll find something else. Now, last night when I was getting ready for bed, this is awesome. I'm getting ready for bed, and for some strange reason, I'm craving brownies, and not just a regular brownie. I'm craving a chocolate chip cookie brownie, like with the base, chocolate chip cookie base, brownie on top. I've made those before and they're delicious. And all of a sudden, last night, it's like, I don't know, 10:30 p.m. I'm getting into bed, getting all comfy, and all I can think about are brownies. Needless to say, I'm in big trouble today because I have to leave the house to go do some stuff, which means I can stop and I can pick up ingredients for brownies, and then come home and make a whack of them. Now, do I need to be eating stuff like that? The answer is no. Do I want to be eating stuff like that? The answer is yes. So between the brownies and the burger craving, I suspect dinner tonight's going to be interesting. And when I mean interesting, I mean like a bomb went off in my house, because I'm going to be hopefully making stuff and enjoying it as well. I feel like today's podcast is brought to you by any burger joint. There's no Teachers on Fire podcast today to light us up with that end of things, so we've got to do it on our own with the burgers. I want to shift gears though, unless you have more to say. Oh, you have a kombucha? Beautiful. Ginger something.
Pepper, Peruvian ginger, green tea.
Wow. And it's in the old school medicine bottle. I like.
Yeah, I actually used the thing on it, but I'm seeing now it actually has a thread. I could have twisted it off. But
you wanted to feel old school.
I wanted to hear that.
And I'm having my chai tea in my wife's bottle. Don't tell her. It's my wife's. I'm going to have to chug.
Did you get the beard splash this morning?
Actually, yes, but you weren't watching. You were too busy. I don't know what you were doing. You were doing something and I just popped her. And all over the beard, so now I'm good to go for the day. When I wear the mask, it's awesome because all I'm going to be able to smell is the chai, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're done with burgers and brownies and drinks, I want to go deep a little bit with my latest issue. If you're okay with that,
I am.
So you were fortunate enough, or maybe unfortunate enough, to hear my rant yesterday. So Chris and I communicate in a number of different ways during the week: Twitter, Instagram, text messaging, this new app called Marco Polo.
Sometimes we even talk to each other on the phone, which
it's weird though.
That one is weird. And you and I have had similar experiences where if someone sees me in the house holding my phone, doing something on it, talking with my fingers, no reaction. They see me with it up to my ear, reaction. Even to the point, sometimes I'm walking through the house listening to your Marco Polo response, creates a bit of a stir. And I think it's a like a fluency reversal. And I don't have a really great, I'm not about to market that statement, but the fact of it is we've definitely been doing this kind of talking. Well, we're doing that kind of talking longer, but that kind of talking we've been doing longer than the tappy talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yet going back to actually talking to people, there's a whole study to be done there about how we're not having verbal conversations anymore. Or it's like the whole tappy tap is creating static conversations, asynchronous conversations, even though you're synchronous.
Gotcha.
But I like the Marco Polo. You know what the best thing about Marco Polo is?
Tell me.
The best thing. I apologize. I got to apologize again. Can I just have one more minute of your time?
And please be honest.
I'll be honest. So honestly, TBH, the best thing about Marco Polo is when I see that you're there.
Like the live.
When I get the prompt, well, so you get the prompt if someone's watching your, like, the communication, it says you're there if I'm talking.
Yes.
I love that. I don't know what it is about it. I actually, and part of it is I know how to lurk you in the morning because I figure you're probably out doing your walk. So I know if I kind of get on there and take a peek at it at, X time in the morning, I'm like, chances are he's dropping a message there, a response to something that I wrote. And I love that. I love I love being able to kind of be there at the same time. And I think that goes back to what I crave, which is this kind of conversation. Like the real-time conversation where you are receiving it in real time and able to express in the same time. So every once in a while, I'm just like dropping hearts on there, hearts, right? Because I'm like, as you're sort of talking, I'm like, yo, I'm here. And on your end, it would probably say Clough is here. I think that's what it says.
It says there's a little thing that says Chris is here.
Yeah. And it's funny. I dig the app. It reminds me of it. I think what it does is it taps into, I kind of enjoyed Voxer.
Mm-hmm.
Voxer had similar, but Voxer was good for its day. I feel like Marco Polo is kind of tapping into Snapchat thinking, and like there's elements to it that they're jumping in with a Voxer type app, but not getting bogged down with all the infrastructure that Voxer had, because Voxer looked like an old school texting kind of a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So visually, it doesn't compel you to kind of want to play it. This is super simple, super simple. To be honest, I'm done. That's all I want to mention.
Are you sure? Because you didn't take 30 minutes. You just took literally like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay. So when I was talking to you yesterday and ranting, and I saw that you were there, I was like, this is awesome. He's literally listening to me as I speak. Or there's a little bit of a lag depending on where, like I could be 4 minutes into talking to you, then you jump in and it says I'm live, and I technically am live, but then when I shut it down, there's still more message for you to listen to because it's not exactly synchronous. It's playing my message to you from the beginning, but I might be halfway through when you come in.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I think it's cool. So anyway, I was fired up, and I was swearing like a sailor, which now I feel bad for sailors because I'm sure not all of them swear, but we always use that expression, poor sailors, right? But so I was hip deep in a feeling, and I'll tell you what the feeling is. So the pandemic hits, right? And the experts tell us how to live and where to go and what to do. And for the most part, I've been obeying the experts for the most part, right? And everything is like, none of it really hits home because it just doesn't. I don't own a small business. At work, I wear did you get a new camera?
No.
Oh,
I just wanted to see. No, I didn't. I borrowed one, but I'll get to that later.
Okay. So
the listeners are like, what just happened?
We don't have any listeners because
none. Dang.
Oh, it's Shref, and he's gonna be mad at me because I've got like 4 episodes to push out. So Shref, I was thinking of hey Shref, happy Thanksgiving. It's the American
Shref
Thanksgiving.
Is out there?
No. I'm just, when he does listen to this,
okay.
He'll be like, thanks, Roland. Happy Thanksgiving to Shref and all our American listeners. Okay, so anyway, I've been following the rules. Uh, I don't like wearing a mask, but I wear one because it makes people feel safe and secure. And I appreciate when people wear a mask and they're dealing with me because then it makes me feel safer and more secure. But I hate it. I don't like wearing a mask. And so I'm living my life, going to work. I can sit, I can sit 60 centimeters away from a student as they're reading to me with my mask and face visor on. But then I find out this week that I can't go to the hockey rink anymore with my sons because we're in the red zone now. Somebody made a decision. I don't know if it was my city, my public health unit. There's some confusion there. Someone made a decision that starting Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, that the kids could go into the rink with one coach and no spectators allowed, no parents allowed in the building. And that just pushed me right over the edge. And it pushed me over the edge in a way that you got to hear the full effect coming out of me, because I can go to work every day with 400, 500 kids in a building, but I can't stand in a rink with 8 other parents, all wearing a mask, all socially distant. So I had had enough, and you got to hear about it. And it's even weird talking about it because when I hear anti-maskers and people who believe this whole thing's a hoax, I'm not there. But I tell you, I can lean a little bit in their direction because I kind of understand this whole business of people continuously taking things away from you that you've always had. And so what broke me was telling me that I can no longer enter into a hockey arena with 8 other parents, 9 kids in total, and 1 coach on the ice. And I took a picture. The last time I was at hockey, I took a picture. And I got video of the kids on the ice and I sent it to my friend to say, like, look at how sad this is. Full ice, 9 kids on the ice, and they're doing drills that are kind of fun, but not the same as playing hockey, but they're out there. And then I took a picture of the lobby, ghost town. And this is a huge facility, and it's a ghost town. And then I took a picture of us in the rink, and you can see the parents standing, and you can see the 2 meters in between all of them. There's not even that many of us. And then some smarty pants tells us it's not safe anymore for us to do that. So it just meant, it hit me. It was just, that's it. I had enough. So I had to tell you, I had to share it with somebody. So I shared it with you. And now, since my rant, the rules have been changed again. So now it's still 9 skaters on the ice, or 10 skaters on the ice, and a coach. Now the coach is allowed to have some of his or her bench staff on the bench. So there are some other adults helping, but they're on the bench. There's 1 coach on the ice. There's the 9 or 10 skaters on the ice, and the parents are allowed back in, 1 parent per kid under the age of 18. So I guess somebody heard us because we were very loud and clear that it was ridiculous, that we didn't understand. We don't understand what's the science behind it. How is eliminating 9 adults from this huge area safer for everybody? And I'm waiting for the answer, but I tell you, I'm going to call BS, because if I can go to work every day and I can sit with kids that I have no idea where they're going after school or what they're doing or who they're exposed to, I can sit and do guided reading and have 8,000 shields over my face, but I can't do that at the rink. Just tell me to wear a face shield and my mask. I'll do it. Or here's the best part. You want my rights? You can have my rights. just let me tie my kids' skates. Let me in, I'll tie the skates and I'll leave. And, they can't say that, oh, we can't do that. Yes, you can, because the rules before we went into the red zone were any adult going into the rink that has a young child with them, they're allowed in. Once the skates are tied, they must leave. They can't stay with the young child in the building. So what's been happening at hockey practice is one of the parents who's there for the 6:30 a.m. practice, she has to come with her younger child. So they come in together, they tie the older siblings' skates, and they turn around, they walk out the building and go sit in their car for an hour. So I was livid times 2. Number one, you're not even letting me in to tie the skates of a kid who, people are like, well, he should be able to tie his skates. He can tie his skates. He just doesn't have enough strength to tie them tight enough to have the right ankle support and stuff. So it's like, what do you want me to do? Weight train my kid? No, it's not appropriate. Anyway, they don't even say you can go in, tie the skates, and leave. Probably because they know that there are going to be some people who are not going to be decent about it. There are going to be people who fight back. There are going to be people who are like, I'm in the building now, I'm not leaving. I'm sure it happens. And I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. But in all the times I've been in the rink with the people I'm with, for 2 teams, my older son's team, my younger son's team, everybody's been respectful. I've not seen anybody take a strip off. It's always a lady. Oh, that's not true. There have been men too who come out and they read you the riot act. They read the rules and they invite you in. They basically supervise you until the ice time starts and they leave. And there are security guards everywhere. I've not talked back to a security guard. I've not said anything rude to any of these people who work there. I just do what I'm told. And then they drop this new rule. And I tell you, I've had enough. So for all these small businesses that are still running their shops, they're like, come in without a mask. I don't care. I can't go out of business. I feel for these people. I really do, because here I am wearing my mask, following the rules. Then they drop something on me that makes absolutely no sense. And then there's nobody to talk to. Oh, talk to this person. They don't even give you a name. They give you a phone number. Call this number. Well, guess what? A machine answers the phone, because, you can't have a human talking to another human anymore. So then that amped me up even more, that there's not even a way to figure this out. So then I start thinking Big Brother. I start thinking about my rights, all these things that for many years I've said, whoa, these people need to relax. I'm feeling a bit of that burn now. I'm feeling like I'm a little bit on the fence, falling over on their side now. Because I'm an educated, critical thinker. And when I think critically, like they want me to do, there's nobody there to listen to it, because it's going to get in the way of their plan, whatever their plan is, whatever their safety plan is. So I'm now feeling like I'm just going to live my life. If I enter into a store and I need to wear a mask, no problem. I'll put my mask on. But if one more person tells me I can't do something in the name of safety while I go to work every day with 500 people in the building, sit this far away from a kid and instruct them and teach them and assess them and evaluate them, I think someone's going to get a rant in their face from me with my mask on and my visor. Thanks for listening, Chris.
All good. That moment's brought to you by Brew Dr. Kombucha. This is our competition with Shack Out Back. The pepper hits hard. The pepper and the Peruvian ginger.
I'm still loving my chai tea. I love that flavor, man.
I'm actually a little bit scared to go back to my coffee after this. It's kind of, I feel like it's attacking the inside of my cheeks. I hope it's not spoiled, because
that would be bad.
It's the pepper. It's got the pepper. Part of where my brain goes as you're talking about your concern is how complex this is. super, super, super complex. You just happen to be an individual that's able to, at the same time, explore the complexity. You're also you're dropping, because we talk away from this, I can see where your emotional center is about this, and kind of what's fueling your passion about this topic. Really thinly, part of this is also that deep connection you feel to the sport and to your kid, and wanting to maintain that positivity. You talking about the it my rambling response in the Marco Polo to this was talking about the interconnectedness of things, and it's not a one note emotional response. It's being fed by what you are observing in education right now. It's being fed by how other people are behaving, sort of counter to what health units are saying. It's being fed by, again, like I mentioned, your emotional connection to being able to tie your kid's skates. And you're being logical about it. You're saying why in one space and not in other spaces. So, and to be able to talk about it, hey, to not have someone to talk to about the issues, like that's gasoline on the fire, because so much of what you and I do to work things out is to talk it out. We spend all day talking and working it out with students, sort of modeling what is better than tippy typing talking. We're actually, seeing people relatively in the same space at the same time and working through the challenges of those relationships, the sort of the interpersonal challenges. So my brain also thinks about how I guess we'll just go broad, how COVID and privilege intersect. So I have no doubt that there's probably people that will listen to your story and say, I get it. My kid doesn't have, I get it. I'm not able to spend time with my kid either. It's drop off only. It's curbside drop off for sports only. And then people listening that will also say, they're kind of nonplussed about it to a degree about that particular, because like I could never afford to put my kid in sports in the first place. So that particular intersection is not necessarily lighting them up, because perhaps, the privilege is, we both mentioned this, that we have jobs that open the opportunity for our kids to participate in these things. So the whole interconnectedness just of your response also is a reminder to me of how interconnected it is on the wider sense. So, and there's no good space. It's funny. Not funny, wrong word. It's it reminds me, on one hand, the things that we stopped doing as far as community connections, and we kind of started to whittle those down even right at March 13th. And we sort of encouraged our kids and sort of connected our kids with digital platforms to be able to sort of explore similar activities. So it's almost like we were already reducing our diet of face-to-face activities just because we felt that the drop-off version of it wasn't for us. It just wasn't for us. And by an extension, we didn't want it for our kids. So that's our sort of family's response to it. And now we're starting to have more conversation in the house about, like, we'll do stuff. I mean, we do a lot of stuff as a family. But now we're starting again to have the conversations around what other kind of virtual activities would you like to participate in? I do see the loss. I totally see the loss that the kids aren't able to sort of be out there with other kids in real time. Because like I said, if I go back to the whole Marco Polo thing, you and I have a whole lot of conversations on multi-platforms, asynchronous, synchronous. And the moments that light me up best is when, in order of operation, you and I meeting up for food, you and I meeting up for this podcast, and then me coming across you popping up while I'm dropping a Marco Polo. And all of those have to do with knowing that there's a human there. Like there's an actual human there in the space that I'm communicating into. But I'm not sure. I don't think my kids, I don't know if my kids would be able to articulate that necessarily, that that's what they enjoy. They still kind of just, they more are leaning on, they enjoy the activity. Like they like the activity that they're connected with. I'm imagining eventually they're going to have the fluency to be able to say, it's actually, this is how I'm getting to know this person through this digital platform. And you and I have talked about that in the past. The friendship that we've grown by being able to be intentional and responsible in how we're building our relationship and accountable how we're being the relationship. I really kind of got off track on this thought, but going back to, I think we're definitely in that state now of, here's how I'll wrap it. 2 nights ago, I was looking at the In September series that I wrote, and I spent a lot of time thinking about where I was kind of on point and where I was just ranting. And I found that quite a few of them I was on point, going back through some of those comments, like some of those things are coming to be. And I had mixed feelings about that, because I think even as I was writing those posts back in August, my hope was I was putting out things that were preemptory, as in it might not come to be, but this is how I'm feeling about what that space would be like. But I feel like we're kind of there. Like I said, when I went back and I looked at the post, I'm like, that's the path that I was noticing is the place that we're in now. Last thing I want to say, and I love this just as a learning piece. By the time I got to listen to I think we had some conversation. I don't know where it was. We had some conversation. So I know about how you feel about the hockey skates and tying the skates. I know how you feel about supporting your sons that way. I already knew, you sending me the email that they had backed off, I saw and read before I heard your rant. And there was it changes how it was harder for me to be in the passionate moment with you. Like I had to keep packing it away. Like by this time, it was the future Shref thing, right? By the time he listens to our podcast, stuff has changed. You know what I mean? So, but I thought that's what's so cool about having some of these artifacts, is that you're able to capture truly the spirit and passion of the moment that you're in, and what you were calling your rant. And I thought it was focused, and the swearing was authentic, because it was not as a weapon. It was as a form of expression because of the emotions you were feeling. So, but it was funny. I had to fight not to sort of have one part of my mind diminish your passion, because I knew there was already a solution there. I was fighting my own brain to say, stay in step with the dude, because there's important information that you're learning about a friend in this moment. Does that make sense? Does that kind of?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's what's really the coolest part for me is your response to me helped me dig deeper into why this is so problematic to me. And without getting deep, you basically helped me again open that basement door and go down there and take a look at my baggage, right? And what's down there and what's available, and what have I had kind of tucked away for so many years. But the simple reflection was that it's not just about tying my kids' skates. It's what happens during that moment. So I don't know about other people, but when I tie my son's skates, it's like a dance. The conversation we have, the back and forth, it's a way for me to show him my support physically and emotionally. It's a way for him to express whatever he has on his mind, because I'm not making eye contact with him, right? I'm looking at his skates, and I'm literally, it's so awesome. It's so automatic. My fingers are doing what they do, because I know exactly, that's the other thing. I know exactly how he likes his skates. So even when I can't take him to hockey and my wife has to take him, or so my wife will take him and I'll just say, just ask so-and-so to tie his skates. Um, that worries me, because will they be tied the way he likes them? Will it interfere with his performance? Will it bring anxiety? Like, I know it's just tying skates, but this is where my wife would laugh at me and say that this is the weird stuff about me. These are the things where I like to put my energy.
You know
Right?
what though? But here's the thing. There's a laugh that I think the laugh is one of those more, it's kind of in the zone of uncomfortable laugh, because it is the over analysis, but it's also like, this is a cycle, dude. This is the cycle. And as I, I messaged you last night and I'm getting all choked because I'm thinking about my own dad, and I'm thinking about your experience, and I'm feeling your grief of loss, of not having that moment. And I'm envisioning the kid slash me sitting on the bench there as you slash my dad are tying my skates. And I'm thinking about, from the kid's perspective, kind of the mechanics of it, but there's also the need. Like, there's that codependent need. Like, I do need my dad to do this, not necessarily having access to the dad thinking that the dad needs to do this. And then I'm trying to think about the two different monologues that are going on in each one of those players' heads. The thing that's going through the dad's head, the thing that's going through the kid's head. And then all of a sudden, I'm then thinking about all the stuff that as a kid, you just don't pay attention to in the same way that you do as a dad. It isn't until you reach the dad that stuff comes complicated, because you're tying your kid's shoes, and you're tying your kid's shoes as you and your father at the same time, because you have access to some of that operating system. And when you don't, you're still doing it in two different spaces, but you're getting these emotional things popping up, like, why is this bringing tears to my eyes? Or why is this, I'm taking so much joy from this? Like, what is it? What's the undercurrent here that I just can't connect with? And I dropped to you that message about writing things on water. It's just kind of coming across it, and some of the philosophy stuff that I'm paying attention to now. And I'm really deeply thinking about the stuff that was kind of written on water by my dad. And it kind of goes invisible. But as I mentioned to you, I feel like I'm navigating some of those same spaces, and the stuff is popping up, and realizing that I have access to my dad's thinking through activities just like this, tying the shoes, tying the skates. It's heady stuff, man. It's heady stuff.
Yeah, like there are little threads that once you look closer at the situation, you see the individual threads, right? You start to figure out what makes up whatever it is that you see from 10 feet away. So again, like, after you kind of presented your perspective to me, and the perspective is you, from a child's perspective, a privileged perspective, you gave me so much to think about, which is awesome, because that's what gives me, I think, more of a boost to who I am. And so you really got me thinking about it's more than just me tying the skates. Obviously, I've said that already. And for anybody who's heard me talk about this type of thing before, it's there's a lot of layers. And I'll give you an example of, it's also, I feel like I'm providing a service that's going to go away soon. So for example, my 14-year-old, he can tie his own skates. So when I take him to hockey, he'll go sit in his chair to put on his equipment, and he doesn't need my help with his skates. So I don't have that opportunity anymore to have that one-on-one before he goes out and does whatever he does. I find other ways. So we talk in the car. When I park the car and we're walking to the rink, I'll have my thing with him. And then once we're in the rink, I'm following the rules. I'm doing this. I'm not over here. I'm not over there, whatever. Right. But it's now with COVID, the tying skates has become a moment. It's become something I look forward to. So it's not only, oh, dad's taking you to hockey and he's going to watch. It's dad's taking you to hockey and he's going to have that moment when he ties your skates. And that's going to feed me, right? It's so selfishly, it's going to provide me with something that I need to keep going. When you talked about, envisioning like you being a kid and somebody tying your skates and you thinking nothing of it, it's like, I don't have that. It's almost like, I get what you're saying, that every kid should just be able to sit there and enjoy the moment of, hey, tie my skates so I can get on the ice. And I'm taking to a whole other level. Before I let this go, I'll tell you that the past couple of hockey times, there's a boy there and his mom's brought him, and he doesn't like her tying his skates. Like, he's say, you're not tying my skates. So the past couple of times she's politely asked me to tie his skates because I've been right next to him. In fact, after the first time, the second time I noticed he was starting to get his gear on, and I said to her, do you want me to tie his skates? He said, yeah, for sure. I said, okay, let me finish up my boy's skates. And then this is the service part. This is a service part that I don't have to do with my son because I know how my son likes his skates. And he participates. When I get to a certain point, William will say to me, stop, let me take over. He does his little route. It's like a routine. He does his thing, and then I'm allowed to continue with my thing. So he's part of it. So this other little boy, I'm like, how do you like your skates? And he's just looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I've got a nickname for him that I'm not going to use here, but I'm saying, hey, like, tell me, does your dad wrap around? Does he pull tighter here? He's like, the first time he said, just do them and I'll tell you if it's off. I'm like, okay. So I tied up his skates. I'm like, what do you think? He's like, that's awesome. Okay. So then the second time I said, you want me to do it like the first time? He's like, yup. And his mom's laughing because here I am. I'm like, literally, I feel like one of the queen's butlers, and I'm delivering her food. I know where to set it down and how to set it. I know it all. And I'm saying to him, okay, I'm going to do this with your, and it's hilarious too, because he's got skate guards on. After I tie one, I take the skate guard off. Like, he's looking at me like, you're nuts. I'm supposed to do that. And I'm like, this is a service. If I'm tying your skates, I don't want you out there thinking, man, Roland messed up my skates and I can't do this and I'm off on my edge here or whatever. I don't want that. I want you to go out there and be like, my skates are good to go. I don't need to think about them again. And that's, I know it's like it's a thread, right? When you step back and you look at this, you see this beautiful artwork. But when you come up close, you see all the little paint marks and brush marks that make up what you see when you stand back. And for me, it's all part of what's bringing me joy these days, right? It's like, man, I was mad when I found out I couldn't go in there and tie skates, let alone watch them. But okay, I can't watch. You don't want me in the building near other humans. That's fine. But I can't even make sure he's good to go. I got to do that in the car. Anyway, and I want to go back to privilege. I am very privileged right now, but I wasn't when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I played hockey. So yeah, my dad paid a lot of money for me to play hockey. So some people would say I was privileged, but I was privileged, and yeah, my dad paid for me to play hockey, but my dad never came to my hockey. My dad didn't tie my skates. I had to get other people to tie my skates until I could tie my skates. And it was always like, why does a little kid like me, when I was a kid playing hockey, I always had to think about the adult stuff too, because there was no adult to help me. That sucks. And I don't want my kid to experience that. And I don't want any other kid around my kid to have to experience that if I can be there to help. So yeah, I'm privileged now. I worked hard to get my privilege though. So I worked hard to leave an unprivileged situation to become privileged. And one of the heartaches that I have these days is that my kids don't understand what it means to not be privileged. So it's like I'm literally fighting with them and they're looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, the reason why I am the way I am is because I had to come from a place where there was no privilege.
Mm.
And now you're living, you don't know what that looks like. When they feel the lack of privilege, then all of a sudden it's an issue. But it's like, I tried to warn you about that and you just won't listen to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
they just can't see it. And I understand that now. They can't, how can they possibly see it? They would have to really dig deep. They would have to really dig deep to step outside of themselves and to look at it from a different perspective, because they don't have it. So they would have to make it, just like I'm making my moments now.
Mhm.
People they think I'm crazy. When people, if somebody said to me, what's the best part of watching your kid play hockey? And I say tying his skates, again, they don't understand what that means to me. They don't understand the baggage I have in the basement that I've had to go and unload. They don't get any of that. And that's okay, though. I give them a pass. Laugh at me, make fun of me. You don't get it. That's fine. You're not part of my moment. My moments are in other places. And only my friends will hear about these things. So you hear about them because you're my
Mhm.
friend and you're willing to listen. So, and I'm willing to listen to you, just like you were killing me this morning on my walk because you were talking about some personal stuff. And I was like, for God's sake, Clough, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm dripping already. The nose and the mouth.
Oral hydration, dehydration. There's a layer here that that the whole being in service, being of service and in service to another human. There are multiple stories, many of them associated with a different denomination, about the washing of feet. And I can't help but think that there's a universal here operating, because often that story, that narrative, is the teacher or the elder washing. Like, I think that the deeper story here, the versions that I have read, have to do with the teacher or the elder or the mentor washing the students' feet. So it becomes an exercise, an action, if you will, in demonstrating humility and service. And there was something about this whole story that was connecting with me, and it was a couple days ago. I'm like, it reminds me of this act of egoless support. To tie up the skates is sort of a, let's say, a modern day Canadianized version of the washing of the feet. And I don't have enough grounding in there to sort of really unfold that. It's still quite tightly packed, but I can appreciate the selfless. It's funny, in selfless acts what you find out about yourself. There's just like, that's kind of like my t-shirt for my late 40s, that when you can actually put yourself in that space and open yourself up to these small purposeful moments of learning, that you just get your mind blown. So I dig that.
Are we doing a podcast tomorrow night with Ramona?
Yeah, we're back in the saddle.
I'm worried I'm going to forget.
So much has happened since the last time we got a chance to sit down. So I am looking forward to, like, I feel like there's some fire and some salt in there, that just to kind of grind into our topics. So listeners, we also do a podcast with Ramona Maharg, and talk me through your process. We've had about a month and a half, I think, since we last sat down. But I'm looking forward to talking about conversation about leadership and leadership process and what it looks like in 2020. Kind of.
I'm feeling the same. I am looking forward to the conversation. I think it's the people involved, right? So,
Yep.
You and Ramona and our guest. I'm not familiar with the guest because it's somebody that Ramona
Yep.
works with, or in the same board. So, but I'm looking forward to it because, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think I may have shared with you what my school board's doing this year for leadership formation. They're having like a 4-part online series, very different than how it's always been done. It's always been a face-to-face. Um, you meet once every month and a half or whatever, and there's readings and there's reflections to be done to help you along your journey, and that's kind of all shifting. It's just interesting to see how all these spaces are being filled now, like all the Google Meets and the team meetings and stuff. In fact, on Monday, my school board had a PD day. It was a spiritual development day, so it was a day for us to work on our faith formation, and because we're a Catholic school board. So
Can you unpack that a little bit? Because
sure.
I nod my head and then I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite sure what that is.
In our Catholic school system, our faith is very important to us, and one of the pillars of our professional development is our faith formation and our discernment as followers of Christ. So, like, you know, where are we on our journey? Are we doubting certain things? Are we questioning certain things? Are we really comfortable with certain things? How are we connecting out the work that we do every day to our faith? Now, I can answer that like without question. Every day, I see my colleagues treat people respectfully and always looking to do the right thing. And I know you'd say, well, what's the difference? That's what you do too. There's just a different feeling. And I can say that because of having been in public schools, I was missing that feeling that I get from being in a Catholic school. And maybe it's all just psychological, but at the very least, we take a day, a PD day every year. A PD day is dedicated to our faith. So what does that look like? Some years were, well, in the past, before COVID, we'd all come together at a big venue, and we would have a mass together, and then we'd have a speaker talk to us about our particular area of our faith. And then, we'd break off into small groups, or we'd go back to our schools and we'd do small group activities or large group activities to help us reflect on who we are, and as Catholics and as humans and parents and teachers and stuff. And this year we did it virtually, and we were permitted to do it from home. And we could have gone into school if we wanted to, but my wife and I decided we were going to stay home and do it from home. And it was different, but it was really cool. And so how it worked was we all gathered together on one Teams call to start the day, and we watched. The school board had put together an opening liturgy and a closing liturgy, and it was very well done with music. And the priest at the school board, our chief, I think he's called. He's the priest that's responsible for our faith formation. Anyway, so he was in the video, and it was really cool. So we watched the opening mass / liturgy together as a staff, and then we had some videos to watch on our own that talked to us about really considering who we are, and how God has made us, and how God has made us to be who we need to be, not who we might think we want to be, but who we truly are. So we watched some videos around that, and then we got together in small groups virtually, and there were some guiding questions for us to reflect upon. So that was the morning. Then we had lunch, so we were all free to do lunch however we did lunch. And then after lunch, the afternoon was all about equity. And so we watched some videos of a lady in Waterloo region who does a lot of equity work, and she talked about racism, systemic racism, equity, cultural sensitivity and diversity in our region. It was really cool because she's from our region. So what she was talking about is like right here. It's not like
Hmm.
some abstract idea from somebody far away from us, right? And then again, we got together and we talked about what we saw and what resonated with us. And then at the end of the day, we all came back together again for a closing liturgy, and and then that was it. That was the day, and it was done on a Monday, which was a little bit different because usually PD days are on Fridays. So this year they chose to do it on a Monday. And I have to tell you that I've left some of these spiritual development days not feeling so great. But this one I left feeling really good. I felt like I had regained some of the energy that I had lost just from the grind of everyday teaching in this COVID time. I felt re-energized. I felt like somebody had said to me, "It's okay to be who you are."
Hmm.
Because sometimes I struggle with who I am because
Hmm.
who I am sometimes goes against some of the things that I think I value, which is really interesting. So it was nice to be reminded that I am who I am, and I have reasons for my thinking and my actions and stuff, and I don't need to be like anybody else. So that was the morning. The afternoon was really awesome because lately I've been doing a deep dive into equity issues, and I've been I've I'm becoming more comfortable with who I am from an equity perspective, right? So like a person of color who grew up denying that part of himself. And even as I talk to you, I recall high school and talking to my friends about who I am and some of my insecurities about who I am, and they would just dismiss it. And I don't think they were doing it they're just like, Roland, you're like everybody else, man. I don't know what are you so worried about, or it doesn't make a difference, or you don't need to worry about racism. And I look back on that and I'm like, that's part of the problem. People walking around saying stuff like that. But I didn't know it then because I was just like 17 years old. I didn't get it, but I knew something was off. And now I really know what's off. And it's not me. It's the world around me.
Yeah.
And so I'm reclaiming. I want my stuff back, which is interesting because wow, when I talk about First Nations and I consider their issues and what they've gone through and what they want back, you won't catch me siding against them
Hmm.
because what's been done to them is horrible. And still to this day, they are being treated poorly in certain parts of our beautiful country that we think is so awesome. They're still being treated differently and negatively relative to everybody else. So I'm reclaiming, and it's almost like get out of the way because I might come at you like a bulldozer just because I'm just tired of having tried to be somebody else for so long that now it's out there. And some of my close friends will tell me, Roland, be careful with how you do what you're going to do. And I say, well, tell me more. Why do I need to be careful? They say, because now you're in a position of, you have some power, right? You have some authority. You're in a place where you can speak. And I say to them, now you want me to temper that? So before, when I didn't have a voice and I wanted it, I did everything I could to build myself into a world
Hmm.
where I could speak.
Yeah.
Now I can speak and I'm being told, temper it because you may upset the wrong people. And my response is, I appreciate your position and I appreciate you looking out for me. But part of the bigger problem is people like you telling me to temper myself.
Yeah.
And you may not see it that way. And I see it both ways. I see you as someone who believes I have a lot to offer and that could all be ignored depending on what I say and who I say it to.
Yep.
But for far too long, I've been silent. I don't want to be silent anymore. So how that comes out is how it comes out. And I really, a lot of my reflection, a lot of my practice is am I going to be okay when I step on the wrong person's toes? At the end of the day, I have to be okay with that. And if I'm okay with that, and it gets me in the doghouse, then it's okay. I can live in the doghouse. I've been in the doghouse before. So I just need to be okay with that. And as long as I'm okay with it, then nothing's going to stop me.
It's good.
So that's kind of what happened on Monday. I've been thinking about it a lot.
It's interesting to me, I think the necessity of the faith formation. I see secular parallels that don't have to be necessarily connected with a specific religion. I mean, the structure of it is good because it gives you a little bit of the operator's manual to kind of test drive stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can, depending on the I guess, depending on how you are interacting with your faith and participating in the celebrations of your faith, you gather more and more information that ultimately I think you kind of turn into action. And those actions inform you about where you are in your faith formation. I really appreciate the day that you're talking about here, where you get a chance to kind of work the plan a little bit. We have, and so you have that, and then on top of that, where I'm sort of making a connection here to the more secular side is creating your ALP, so writing your teacher's plan for the year. And the ALP, there again, is this, I think the success and the robustness and the actual richness of your ALP is dependent on how actively you interact with your teacher side, right? Like how deeply you think about things, how you're test driving different approaches, who you're connecting with. So much of it is relational and generational and community based. It would be fascinating to me, because the work that you're doing to build your faith is not, it doesn't, I don't know if it fits comfortably into committee work or sort of like, but it's as significant, right? And it also sets, I think, foundational lenses for you to do your job. I think it's the thing from the beginning, since you and I started talking, and the questions that I ask about how faith intersects and weaves into your day and your pedagogy. You've done a great job always of kind of not only explaining it, so giving me textbook, but also expressing what it means for you. And yeah, public education, there's no comfortable space yet that I've experienced where we can talk about public education and the intermingling of faith. Not yet, but that's cool stuff, man.
Well, thanks. It's working for me right now. So it always has. Like I said, when I did my practicum in teachers college and I was in a public school for two out of the 3 or 4, it was really weird. Because I had gone through Catholic school from the beginning right to the end, and it was just weird. Like not seeing the symbolism of the faith and not praying. And I mean, even if you don't believe in it, right? Even if you don't believe in it, there are opportunities for reflection. And that's good for everybody. So, I'm not going to name names, but someone has recently said to me that they just feel like they can't believe. And I'm like, well, tell me more. And they're like, well, I don't know how much I should say because I don't know what your thing is. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. You believe or you don't believe. That's you. That's not me. That's you. So if you want to talk and you think you can talk to me, then do it. And if you don't want to talk to me, then don't do it. So it was one of those, like, speak your truth or I'm walking away. Like, I'm not playing here. I don't have enough time to play anymore. So, the response was, I don't know if I believe in God. And I'm like, well, did something happen? Or like, have you never believed? And the response was, well, I've grown up people are always telling me this is what I should believe. And I go to church and this and that, and I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And I said, that's fine. Like, so what's the conflict? Well, the conflict is I'm in a Catholic school. I'm like, yeah, I guess that could be a conflict, eh? If it gets in the way of like what we're supposed to be doing as Catholic educators, I can see that being a problem. I said, but when there's moments of prayer or moments of like reflection, do you use those opportunities to grow or to reconsider what you're doing and how you do it? And they're like, yeah, of course. I said, well, then at the end of the day, like, are you still teaching? I shouldn't say teaching because then it means I'm talking about an educator and I may not be. When it comes to the religious component of being in a Catholic school, is it interfering with who you are and what you're about? And the response was, no, I just don't believe it. And I don't like being told what to believe. I said, that's fair. And then they're looking at me funny because they're like, how dare you like say that's fair? And I'm like, well, I just told you, you're going to live the life you want to live and I'm going to live the life I want to live. And then it's like, I say to them, like, have you not noticed I've been kind of awakened in the past year or two? Like I'm waking up to who I really am. Now, fortunately for me, my job still aligns with who I am.
Yep.
But I could see there being a problem. I just said to this person, if you want to talk, I'm here to listen. And if you don't want to talk, that's fine. But there are people who are questioning. I don't think there's anything wrong with questioning. I don't. Because at the end of the day, you have to live your own life. Nobody's going to live your life for you. And this is the part that like I say this to my boys these days all the time. I'm like, this is your life. And yes, I try to influence your life. And as long as you live under my roof, there are going to be rules and expectations. But one day you're going to be on your own. You're not going to have me in your ear or in your face. So let's do our best to negotiate what's happening here under my roof so that when you go out, you're not just like lost.
Absolutely.
I didn't have that. I didn't have a lot of the things that I have today, but what I do have are all the things that have led me to today. So when I look back and think of my parents, we never had conversations like this. If I ever told my parents I didn't believe in God, it would have been a problem. But that's not the way it goes. But if my kid tells me I don't believe in God, then I'm going to say, well, let's talk about it. Like, what is it that you don't believe, or what's getting in your way, or I want to hear about it. How can I support you?
Yeah. And I think where probably some of that lost in translation was maybe happening between you and your person that you were sort of exploring their faith with them. That moment, if I take it back into that same conversation between you and your parents, you not believing in God or questioning God, if you will, I whatever it is where you're not 100% in. I think that your parents, if you're saying there would have been an issue, the parents would have probably, like, I'm sure it's like, is it your parents' issue or is it your issue? Your parents might have said, you got to fix this, but we're feeling the actual emotionality of this issue. And it's what's fascinating to me is that I always feel like if someone were to say to me that I've lost faith in X, then I'd be thinking to myself, well, then you have some work to do. Because I would think to myself, one, that must not feel great. Because the fact that you're just sort of, if someone were just openly telling me that, I would say that I would feel a little bit, I'd be wondering, well, are you still craving faith? Like, are you craving faith, but feeling like you're being left behind? Like, is it that kind of loss of connection? Or is it that you're arguing with faith and you don't like what it's telling you what to do? But either way, I kind of think to myself, that's your work. Like that's you figuring out where you're placed in your faith. That's what that is. And I love your sort of doubling down there saying, I'm not going to judge you, because I think that was a strong operant in that conversation. Maybe even more so if they perceive you to be someone who is confident in their faith, in your own faith, and them coming to you, however the conversation actually happened. It's so multi-layered. them coming to you because they want clarity, them coming to you because they want permission to leave the faith, them coming to you because they need mentorship. There's a lot of fascinating stuff going on there, but I kind of start from the point of view of, unless there was a cataclysmic example that they're sort of sharing where harm was done, I would perceive that individual as a seeker, and they're still trying to figure out, and it might not be within Catholicism. Maybe they need to shift to another faith. Maybe they need to pursue philosophers. Because I think ultimately, if you're choosing faith or choosing philosophy, you're still looking to understand yourself. Like that's where my comfort zone of centering would be. I can choose to sort of immerse myself in Catholic stories. I know many of them because I was brought through Catholicism. I fell away from it partially through protest, partially because I was sort of seeing inconsistency in my parents' practice. So it didn't have any reinforcement for me that there was actual benefits to the practice. It was all very incredibly invisible. We were going through the routines of going to church, but I never had a sense of what's the background operate, like what am I actually growing in the background here? It just was an inconvenience from my parents' point of view. So as far as me learning, as far as me being able to access the complexities of Catholicism, so where you can come out on the other side and look at the complexities as conversations that you can have with others. I never arrived in that space. I never ever arrived in that space. I now can go back and I kind of grab those stories. I can see even my reference this morning to the foot washing and the skate tying is connected to like my really low level understanding. Is it Monday, Thursday or Monday, Tuesday? I'm not even quite sure, but that period is also associated with the foot washing. And I think I could be off on the story. I think it was Jesus doing it for others. So the teacher doing it for the mentor, the mentee, and this individual coming to you. Like I said, it's complex. It's complex. And you've said on a few occasions that you feel like there's a fullness that you're coming into with your faith this year, that there's elements of it. You have done a fantastic job of revealing to me what could have happened had I stayed for the conversation longer. And whatever 40, whatever years you have, there's no real, I don't think there's any guarantee on the amount of time it takes to sort of arrive in those conversations. You could have arrived here in the same space, faith space, when you were 20, maybe in your late teens, who knows? But I will say what's apparent to me is that as you talk about your faith and your family and your pedagogy and the things that you're interested in, I can see the harmonics there. I can see where the wholeness of your person is kind of like, it's been a good year for you to start really engaging with your faith as a whole tool in your whole life. And I say that from like almost a secular position, like just me being outside the faith. I can see where it fuels you and fires you up. So it's good stuff.
But will it continue to fuel me and fire me up in the direction that the masses want me to go in? Or will it fuel me and fire me up in a way that people are like, what you're doing is not right? And I'm like, well, too bad, because from an equity lens, I need to make sure. The thing that kills me the most is when I'm given this opportunity, this responsibility to work with kids every day. Mm-hmm. And I've always taken it seriously because it's like kids are our most precious resource moving forward, right? Like they are the future. So,
dude, you're tying skates every day.
Well, in a way, I kind of am to those who will listen to me, right?
Yep.
And so I really see it as an honor and a privilege to be able to have my job and what I do with my work. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, I think to myself, my students who struggle, for me to use the faith against them, it just seems so wrong, right? That the faith would supersede the treatment of an individual in front of me. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to go deep with it, but I will tell you that Those are the days that I question my faith. Those are the days that I question the teachings of the church, because you want to include everybody, but you don't want to include everybody because of certain parameters, certain expectations. And I don't believe I have that luxury. I don't believe that for me to stand in front of 20 kids and maybe dismiss 2 of them for whatever reason connected to my faith, I don't think that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's equitable. I think it's a huge injustice in the big picture. So those are the things that I'm starting to learn to really grab a hold of. And those are the things that like I feel in my mid 40s, that's what I'm tackling now, right? Like that's what I'm tackling. And it's tough. It's tough. But at the end of the day, if you're going to leave me, you're going to leave me with 20 kids. I'm going to do everything I can to teach them properly and to help them become good people. And I'm going to try to stay out of their business. But if they bring me their business and they say they need support, and it goes kind of against what the church teachings are and stuff, well, I can't ignore the people standing in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And I feel for kids who don't feel like they're welcome, but they're part of the system. It breaks my heart, right? If a kid chooses to attend a Catholic school because they feel that will be, it meets their need, it helps them along their way, I think that's pretty awesome. Because as a Catholic system, we are always little brother. We never have the same funding as the public schools because we don't have the numbers, right? And there are people who want us eliminated.
Yeah.
There are even people within our system that want us eliminated. So I just think there's a lot riding against us. But when you look at what we offer, and when our teachings are aligned with our students, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't align with our students and who we're there to serve, and then you start to have people on different sides of the fence, it's like, well, you got to look at your situation and see what side of the fence you're on and what you can do to make things good.
Mm-hmm.
And there are always going to be people in power that don't agree with that. But guess what? I'm finding my power. So it's almost like I don't want to fight, but I'll take one. Right? Like I've been silenced too long. This is my story. My silence has caused me now. I don't do well. I don't do well with that stuff, and that's okay because the universe has a plan. God has a plan. I'm supposed to be. They told me on Monday I'm supposed to be who I am. So if you don't like who I am, that's too bad because that's how God made me.
Mm-hmm.
This could go on forever. Needless to say, right now, my jive is making sure my kids are as good as they can be, especially with the nonsense of this COVID-19. I just had parent-teacher interviews. It's a whole other. I did it all by the phone. 14 of them were done with a translator because the parents, their English is not strong enough. Their understanding and their expression of it's not strong enough. So we had an interpreter, and I tell you, it is a humbling experience to sit and to speak with people who know that I'm holding the power. I've got all the cards in my hands. I'm the one that makes the decisions. I'm the one that writes the report cards.
Yep.
I'm the one who's with their kids every day. And so it was a humbling experience to listen to them talk to me about, there were some themes in our discussions. And one theme was how grateful they are that someone will sit with their child all day and help them learn the language and help them learn how to be people.
Mm-hmm.
And, my response to that is it's more than a job, but I'm doing my job. And I'm glad that you appreciate my work, and then the other thread was, what can we do to support them? And that can be difficult because the very things that you need to be able to do support them, you have to be able to do. And if you can't do them, then I have to answer your question in another way to empower you and not to break your spirit, so It's just it's been a year, and you know how people say, like, in crisis you see your true character.
Hmm.
So I'm seeing my true character, and I think people don't like it, but that's okay because I like it, and I'm gonna be who I am, and um, there's not much more to say about that.
I'll add one little. It's sort of like a comment and a plug. So a lot of it's when we talk about equity work and faith formation work, there's a real difference to how that could look to a first year teacher versus an experienced teacher. And the looking at teaching through an oppression lens was actually one of the topics that Miriam and I talked about this week. So Miriam is a teacher candidate that's been working with me, and I've been putting to her some kind of big thought fuel frames, and one of them was talking about oppressive systems in public education. And I bring this to mind only in so much as there's there's an amount of experience in living that has to kind of go along with your fire to be able to work with these lenses and create effective change. And you talking about, being in your 40th ish years, that the things are starting to come into place, to be able to speak to it, to be able to see it. Because I kind of worked through an equity lens, talking about how you have to be able to see it, name it. You have to sort of see your own lived experience as just one of the stories. It's not somebody else's story. So I'm putting these things to her as a teacher candidate, and she's just, the words that we use this week is like, it's coming from the fire hose, but she's really digging the big picture thinking. And for her, I said, it's reasonable in an interview to be asked, the comment of, okay, that was an effective lesson plan. Thank you for walking me through it. Now, how would this lesson look through an equity lens? Or how would this lesson look through a faith-based lens? And you have to sort of have some of that thinking there, even if you don't have direct lived experience. So those conversations are, one, it's cool because she's letting me post them up on the Chasing Squirrels feed, which is cool stuff, right? Other people can listen in on our end of day. So it's sort of like a short run series for 5 weeks, just called How Was Your Day? And, but it's really showing me the distance and the treasure that I have access to as a experienced teacher, to be able to talk with her. Because on one hand, I love it how she anchors my thinking. So she brings me back to these places where I have to be accountable for my thinking and speak to what are my points of reference. I don't just get to make it like, come along for the ride and believe me. I have to go back and cite, like, where have I picked up these pieces along the way? And the other part too is her bringing in new thinking and pushing back on some stuff, as in, that doesn't make sense to me. Clough, I can see it makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to me. So kind of walk me through those steps a little bit. So I'm digging that. And it just brings to mind too, like you talking about the place that you're in right now, in your sort of like dad, teacher, faith, I want to say follower, but that's not right. As a Catholic, right? I could go there as a Catholic. I love the harmony. I love it. I love it because it's that wholeness just like exponentially boosts what you bring to the table. Even if from within, you're still asking questions, I think what you're doing is acting on some of the answers, which is cool. I think it's great to have those questions and to even notice that you need to ask the questions, to even be able to figure out what the question is half the battle when it comes to philosophy and I think religion, right? So it's good stuff.
I have to say, Tim from Teachers on Fire did jump in
Cool.
when we were in our deep dive, and he said that the deep discussion this morning was something he was enjoying.
I blame it on the burgers, right?
It started with the burgers. None way None way.
Kind of hard to say, isn't it?
It is. I want to say no one way, but that's not what it says.
Ramona's here too.
Yes.
Good morning.
Ramona's late to the party. Her ears must have been burning. Yeah, good morning. Her ears must have been burning when we were talking about doing a podcast with her tomorrow night.
I'm sure it was also, I mean, the other part too, she's checking in. She says late, but the truth of it is, this is normally when we're just getting rolling. Like,
that's true. Today
we went in hot. We went in hot, short on ramp. It was almost vertical, and then boom, we're in.
It was almost vertical. I feel like I'm in an airplane, but
yeah, we got launched. We launched.
It was awesome. We were talking, and I was just like, I'm hitting record.
Yep.
And we didn't even say anything. We just did it.
I did see the look on your face, though. It was a little bit like this. There was you cued me just a little bit, and then I saw the red light pop up the live, so that's all good. Well, so good morning, Ramona, and good morning, Tim, if you're still out there. If not, thanks for checking in.
For sure. So this was season 4, episode 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm behind. Poor Shref is probably at home. What's the word? Dehydrating.
Oral dehydration.
Oral dehydration, crying. Actually, it's ocular dehydration.
Ocular and oral and nasal dehydration.
Waiting for me to post.
Chomping at the bit.
And then the whole burgers and sandwich thing came up. Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyway, this was season 4, episode 12 of Decoded Podcast. We have no sponsors, so it's brought to you by Chris and Roland. And
talking about burgers.
Talking about burgers and other things. Okay. Yep. So we're shutting her down, and I guess I'll be seeing you tomorrow night.
Yeah, for sure.
Our leadership podcast.
Leadership podcast. Ramona, remember, we're talking tomorrow.
And for anybody who doesn't watch us on YouTube, you should, because we're podtubers. We're podtubers. I'm wearing my YouTube shirt today.
Nice.
Boom. Got that from the mothership.
I'd like to get it. It's a nice t-shirt.
Thanks, Clough.
There's a spelling mistake on it. Did you make it yourself?
There's a spelling mistake?
Can you imagine? It's one of those knockoff YouTube.
Hey, if it means half the price, I'll buy it.
Nice.
Okay, peace be with you.
Ciao. Peace.